So I'm joined today with David Mitchell, and we had long planned to do a Zoom, just talking about the website, but something much more serious and important has come up first. Those of you that follow social media may well be aware of it, or at least some of the details. And it relates to very popular dog of just a couple of years ago, and perhaps one of the best known dogs in the industry because of David's social media efforts, Bluetick George. David, mate, it's great to get you on the onto a Zoom. Let's kind of dive straight in. What's the story with George?
So basically, Vicky and I, went to Spain to get married. We came back and we kind of noticed that George, initially, he looked a bit lame. And most people who was watching this and have watched Greyhounds their entire life, sometimes it can be quite difficult to know if it's which front leg it is, the left or the right. It's a little bit. So we kind of watched him, and I thought it was the shoulder to begin with. So I started using Tavati, and I'm thinking, I think it's a bit further down. So a couple of days later, it generally got worse, and he wouldn't really put weight bear through his right front leg. And so I kind of, pulled his wrist back, and he yelped, which is unlike George at all. He's not that type of dog. Even if he hurts himself, he very rarely makes a noise. So we decided to take him to the vets, and it started ballooning really, but it was more like fluid. So the vet had a little look and said, we don't think it's bone, like it's broken anything. I think he's maybe just knocked it. Maybe he's been out on a walk, or maybe even been bitten by something. So we gave it 48 hours, and basically he was getting worse on it. He was just literally not putting any weight through it. So we took him back to the vets, and they said, right, we'll book him in for an X-ray in the morning. We'll just make sure that everything's fine. And that was that. We took him on the morning for the X-ray, left him. He was absolutely fine, albeit he just wasn't using the leg at all. I was sat at the computer, as you know, I work from home, Floyd. So I was sat at the computer, and I got a call, and it was the vet, and she just said, look, are you sat down? I said, yeah. Why? And she basically said, we've X-rayed George, and he's got osteosarcoma in his leg. And for me, I didn't even understand what that was when she said it. And I said, well, how bad is that? She said, well, it's a cancer of the bone, and we've really got two choices. We can remove his leg, or we can put him to sleep. And as you can imagine, I was blown away at that point. I was just a bit shocked at everything. And then she said his prognosis, even if we remove the leg, is 6 to 9 months on average, which then blew me away even more. So after that call, I had to obviously call Vicky, and we were picking the kids up later. So I had to call Vicky and kind of let her know. And as you can imagine, she was absolutely distraught. So I went and picked her up, went up and seen George, and basically made the decision there and then, let's remove the leg, and we'll try our best to extend his life as long as possible. What they did do, and I did insist on it before we made a decision to remove the leg, although that was our initial decision. Vicky and I agreed that we wanted to get the rest of his body X-rayed because of osteosarcoma spreads rapidly. They told us in general, when you actually spot it, it's already spread in other places. So we got him X-rayed, the rest of his body, his other leg, all his internals, and they didn't see anything. So we made the decision there and then, right, let's get him booked in, and the next day, basically 24 hours later, they were removing the leg.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely kind of devastating. And how has he been since the operation?
He had the first operation, and then they monitored him throughout the day, and they called me back on the night and said, look, we think we might have just caught an artery, because there's a bit of bleeding. We're going to leave him for a couple of hours, and we'll let you know how he is. So then they called me back at like 2 in the morning and said, look, we're going to operate again. We're going to open him back up, and we're going to just check everything's okay. So he had the 2 operations. We left him in there for the next 2 days. So we really only got him home on Saturday. We left him in. as you can imagine, and anybody that's met George, the vets and everybody that work at the vets have fell in love with him. We went in today, and you would think he was a superstar in there. And we brought him home, and he's been absolutely fine. He's, you know, eating and drinking and walking around on the 3 legs, and it's just the swelling now. There's a lot of swelling and bruising. I mean, I can show you George. He's
Yeah, I'd
quite
love to see him. Yeah,
relaxed. He's quite happy in himself. So I'll just flick the camera around.
yeah,
I'll pop the light on. So as you can see, the leg was removed here, and he's got the stitches kind of down here, and there's some stitching here, and all this area is nice and tidied up. He's got a bit of swelling right down his side, which has got better over the last 24 hours, and you can see it's just starting to extend. But other than that, other than a bit of swelling in his left leg, he's pretty happy. He's not in any pain. He's on good pain relief, so he seems happy in himself. He's anybody that knows George, he just takes everything in his stride.
yeah. I'm just saying he's eating, and he's which is always a great first sign, isn't it? You know, when after the operation. Just for kind of anybody who's listening to this, I mean, we had a conversation a couple of days ago because I wasn't aware what had happened, and I did explain for the viewers. I did explain to David that many years ago we used to run regular columns with the Retired Greyhound Trust, and particularly Amanda Ainsworth, and she explained that you know, kind of the trauma of a dog having a leg removed, and sometimes it was due to a racing injury, and a lot of owners would kind of back off, and they go, oh no, I can't bear to put him through that kind of trauma. And I remember Amanda saying, you know, this is like a 72 hours that they really struggle, and then after that they kind of bounce back as good as new. And there were lots of examples. I remember talking to Paddy Sweeney, the fabulous vet, and again, he referred to dogs he'd seen in Ireland jumping 5-bar gates with 3 legs. So for anybody that faces this kind of situation, I would say, you know, the advice, I'm not an expert, but listening to experts, I would say don't kind of give up. And again, was talking to David about it. We also, you know, I've heard of many cases where dogs have had cancer, and because they tend to be older, then the owners make the decision, you know, I don't want an 11, 12-year-old dog to have to kind of endure this. But George is a young dog still, and fingers crossed he can bounce back and have a fabulous life. Because David, I know, you know, you're very good on social media, and there's some fabulous pictures of you and the kids, and I mean that they absolutely love him to bits, don't they?
Yeah, he's the house became a home when George retired, and obviously we had that period of time when George was racing where we used to all go down to the track, and not so long ago we were down at Yarmouth leading the finalists, starting the Yarmouth St Ledger, which George won. So the entire family, it's not just like Vicky and I and the kids. Vicky's sister has homed one of George's pups. Like, there's the people contacting me, more, not just from the racing side, but after racing, they're saying, you know, I really want to rehome one of George's pups because of his nature. And he's just a very loving dog. He's got a lot of character. And I think even though Vicky and I share posts on social media and we do these little funny things on his Twitter and whatnot, he's exactly like that. When you meet him, he's, you know, a bit naughty and funny and loving and caring. And the worst thing for him at the moment, I think, is greyhounds are creatures of habit. So when we take the kids out to school on a morning, he runs upstairs and he lies on the kids' bed. So he's trying to do that, thinking they just go into a routine. And even on a night, he likes to, Joshua sits and plays upstairs on his PlayStation. He likes to go and sit with him. He knows he can't do that now. And it's more that. And I think what you're saying about the 72 hours, Floyd, I totally agree. He's starting to come round now and kind of get out of that zone. But things like this, even though they look horrific and it's never nice, and as you said, he's a young dog. it affects humans more than it affects dogs. You know, they can take these. He can take that better than what we can. Whereas we're very, very emotional, very upset. He doesn't know any different, and he will adapt to it, and he is adapting to it now. And it's about the people around just adapting to that change. And that's what Vicky and I have kind of said now. Whether it's 6 months, 9 months, 5 years, 2 years, there's conflicting stories about dogs that can live for a long period of time. We're just going to really enjoy the time that we've got with him. The kids are going to enjoy the time. We're going to just try and make as many memories as possible.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. It's funny you say about habits, because again, I talk to people, or what really irritates me is when you hear some of this anti-racing stuff, and people say, oh, they've come home and that they struggle to adapt, and I mean, we have one here where Rushy, where she came back when we first got her, she tried to jump the fence. And people go, oh, she's just institutionalized and she'll never settle in. Well, she runs the place. Anybody turns up, she wants to go and meet them. To begin with, she stayed out of the way, and gradually she came around and got to it. And I think one of the things that about the breed that I've noticed over the years is they are very much creatures of habit, that they are kind of a little bit on the spectrum, some much more than others.
Yeah.
And if you do something with the Greyhound twice, you better make sure you do it the third time, because they'll be expecting you to do it the third time. Remember when I did the book with Nicky Sava, and he said that when the daylight saving, the clocks went backwards or forwards, he had to sort of gradually adjust the feed time, sort of 5 minutes a day for like the first fortnight, because the dogs were so tuned in for times and for wanting to get fed, that he couldn't just change it by an hour straight off in one day. He had to do it bit by bit, because the whole kennel would kick off going, we're normally fed by now, why haven't we been fed? And I think people, as I said, when they get retired greyhounds, they misunderstand that they think, oh, they're interested. When they're in the kennel, they love it. It's like blokes at a football club. It's like all the lads together, let's go racing, let's do this. But they do take a time to adapt, and once they do, they adapt perfectly well. So I think just the fact we're talking about George is an opportunity just to explain to anybody that hasn't handled greyhounds before that that's the way they operate. Now, on subject of George, of course, he's a dad. He must have some pups. What, just about on the track now?
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with the people that have used him, and Tom Hilbrand's got litter on the ground. Yeah, he can't be far away. I know that David Titterton litter that's been well publicised on social media with Fergal O'Brien. That litter, I'm sure he's maybe just about trialling now. I think he's got another litter that's I think they went over to Ireland to school. So he's got some young pups around. They're just starting out. How good they are, how well they progress, I don't know. As I say, from every conversation I've had with David Titterton, for example, he's been very, very pleased with the litter that he had from George. So yeah, we'll wait and see how they progress. I mean, George was never going to be a commercial sire anyway, because he was a pet, but people wanted to use him because of his abilities on the track, and we said that was fine, but we made a decision probably a couple of months ago now that he had done a little bit. He had some pups on the ground, and that was he was never going to be a commercial sire anyway. So we don't really know yet. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know why, but I always kind of had a funny feeling that he'd be a good dam sire. George is when he's raced, or even when he's lived at home, he's a consummate professional. He's never done anything silly. And I thought if he kind of put that into some of his bitches, they would throw some nice pups. He's always been a really sensible dog, never wasted energy, always been good in the kennels, good in the van, good traveller. So I kind of thought that he would always throw a nice stamp of a dog.
Yeah, he's a Loghill Bolt, isn't he?
Loghill Duke.
Oh, Duke,
Duke. Yeah, out of JT China, who obviously JT China's through quite a few fast dogs. I think JT Wexford won a couple of rounds of the Derby last year, maybe the year before.
Yeah,
Um,
I think did very well in this, as obviously Wexford and Enniscorthy in an unraced stake there, if I remember as well. I don't think
Yeah.
things worked out quite as well as they should have done for a dog. Clearly had lots of ability, but no, the bloodlines are definitely there. So, well, obviously people are going to be interested. We'll I'm sure we'll do more Zooms going forward, and obviously just keep on track on how things go with George.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, and I will do. And obviously, people will see on social media. We will start sharing his recovery, because I think it's important for anybody else that perhaps has a greyhound that goes through this, that they see how George has progressed, and perhaps it might change the decision in the future. Maybe they'll decide, it's maybe worth removing a leg rather than the alternative. Who knows?